Hey YouTubers, this is the Gold Standards User 924 coming at you with my WWE Payback 2016 review. Overall, I gotta say I really liked the show. Definitely enjoyed this more than WrestleMania 32. A pay-per-view that I just felt was very lackluster, pretty disappointing aside from two or three matches on the card. But, it's especially even after WrestleMania 32, WWE just pretends like the whole show didn't even happen. I mean, granted, you did see Roman Reigns win the World Heavyweight title from Triple H and all the negative reception that it got. Charlotte Flair being christened as the new women's champion now that the Divas title has been deactivated. So other than that, there wasn't really. It's like WWE just pretends like the whole show didn't even exist for some reason, and Chris Jericho ended up defeating AJ Styles, and then all of a sudden AJ Styles is the number one contender for the Roman Reigns' world title. I mean, granted, they did the Fatal Four Way match, the Raw after WrestleMania, but even other than that, it just felt like it just kind of scratches your heads like is AJ Styles even worthy of being the number one contender at this point? So, and then you add the fact that, Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose, Brock ended up defeating Dean Ambrose and then basically took off, so you won't be seeing him for the next couple months. So, now Dean Ambrose just kind of moves on, shrugs it off like his whole thing with Lesnar didn't even happen. So, and then now he's feuding with Chris Jericho when Jericho logically probably should have been the number one contender to face Roman Reigns. But I mean, that's typical modern day WWE for you. But nevertheless, Payback consisted of 8 matches on the card, and 2 of those matches, however, were bumped to the pre-show. So you had Dolph Ziggler against Baron Corbin, which Dolph Ziggler ended up defeating Baron, and Kalisto retaining the U.S. title belt against Ryback. So we get to the main card. So there's basically only about, as I can count, about 5 or 6 matches. I want to say 6 matches actually. And you also have the segment involving the entire McMahon family. Without further ado, gonna kick things off with the main card. So the first match that opened was the number one contenders match to determine who will face the New Day for the tag titles, consisting of the Vaudevillains along with the team of Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy, 2 tag teams from NXT, making their pay-per-view debut on the main roster. So this match, there wasn't really much of a match. Unfortunately, the first 3 minutes going into the match, Enzo Amore slammed his head on the middle rope, so the medics had to come out there and check on Enzo Amore's condition. So, unfortunately, the match was cut short. So, not really much that went on, really, so I can't really judge on the match whether it's good or bad. Just a match that was over before it began. Um, yeah, I really wish Enzo Amore the best. Thankfully it's not a major concussion, but hopefully they do a rematch, a proper match somewhere down the road. So it was just getting underway, and just to see it, just especially being the first match to kick off your show was just kind of, unexpected, which is a thing when it comes to these accidents and injuries and whatnot. So, nevertheless, I wish Enzo Amore and, really supporting him. So hopefully he gets better. So then we get to Kevin Owens taking on Sami Zayn. Basically, um, yeah, basically a really good match. So these 2 guys have been best friends. I mean, even as far before NXT, going back to their Ring of Honor days, with Kevin Owens being Mr. Wrestling Kevin Steen and Sami Zayn, being El Generico, and they both held the tag team titles at one point. So this, with WWE, they basically kind of paid homage to that ROH feud that they had in 2010, I believe. So Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, they were tag team champions, and then eventually at some point Sami Zayn would go on to win the world title, or Yeah, the NXT title, not like the world title in WWE, but the NXT title. So while they're both celebrating, Kevin Owens turns on Sami Zayn. So this starts the rivalry between the two best friends who have now become bitter enemies. And then you watch the Royal Rumble where Sami Zayn entered and basically eliminated Kevin Owens and willing to get some revenge and whatnot. So it's been building up for a number of years, and just to see these two wrestlers, especially on a mainstream level, as far as the program that they had compared to their indie, their original indie run in ROH, just to pay homage to that feud somewhat. So yeah, so the match was going really good. A lot back and forth. Sami Zayn mainly got the most of the offense, and Kevin Owens just doing all he can to wear down Sami Zayn and trying to do the pump up power bomb, but Sami Zayn kept countering and countering. Yeah, there's some pretty cool spots, where Kevin Owens tried to do that power bomb to the outside, but Sami Zayn backflipped Kevin Owens on the apron. Sami Zayn doing that running DDT from through the turnbuckle from the ringside. Some pretty cool stuff. So eventually, Kevin Owens ended up defeating Sami Zayn for the 3 count. So yeah, definitely a really enjoyable match. I guess my only minor complaint is that they, even after the match, they make it seem like this is pretty much the conclusion of the feud. But then we have is the Intercontinental Championship match that Kevin Owens was mentioning that he was willing to get back his IC title, which kind of segues way into the third match with The Miz being the Intercontinental Champion, defending a belt against Cesaro, and basically Sami Zayn attacked Kevin Owens, who was on commentary at the time. And Cesaro even had the Miz beat when he was locking in that crippler crossface, but Miz ended up taking the advantage. Cesaro was distracted. Miz rolls him up with using the tights 1, 2, 3 for the Miz to retain the IC title. Yeah, another match that was pretty enjoyable. I'm guessing from that scenario alone that this will lead to a fatal 4-way match at Extreme Rules. So I'm guessing that Owens and Sami Zayn will eventually continue their rivalry, but even after the Owens Sami Zayn match, like they make it seem like it was the end of the feud, but I really felt like they could use some sort of stipulation, some sort of no holds barred match or some street fight or cage match to, signify the end of their feud. So hopefully they go in that route, and I, definitely enjoyed, especially that match and the Intercontinental title match. Yeah, and it's great to see Maurice back in the WWE again. I thought she was, extremely hot, especially in the modern era. Yeah, definitely, The Miz and Maurice, they're husband and wife, so they're already married. Then we also have is Chris Jericho taking on Dean Ambrose. Yeah, so this was actually another one of those really fresh matches, something that we never got to see. Yeah, first time ever. Um, yeah, so how the build-up stems was that Chris Jericho was cutting the highlight reel, and then Shane McMahon ends up running Monday Night Raw for the next several weeks, even despite the fact that he came up short against The Undertaker at WrestleMania. But I'll likely get to that as the video progresses. But not to digress to another topic. So Dean Ambrose ends up interrupting Chris Jericho. He basically takes over the highlight reel that it's canceled and that it's basically now known as the Ambrose Asylum, much to the chagrin of Chris Jericho, which leads to a bit of a brawl that goes on between the two. And this kind of basically builds up to their match at Payback. It's just definitely a good match. I wouldn't say great, but still a pretty good match on its own. Chris Jericho trying to lock in on the walls of Jericho, and Dean Ambrose just doing all he can to fight out of it. And basically, Dean Ambrose, I think there was a spot where Chris Jericho locked in the walls of Jericho. Like Dean Ambrose was trying to get Chris Jericho on the announce table, trying to go for dirty deeds, but then Chris Jericho, what looked like he was going to go for the walls of Jericho, but eventually he ends up doing a slingshot on Dean Ambrose over the barricade. So then, and it was kind of similar to Triple H and Dean at Roadblock, where Dean Ambrose looks like he's gonna get counted out, but Dean Ambrose ended up getting back in the ring in time, and basically the match continued until Dean Ambrose ended up coming back by nailing Jericho with the Dirty Deeds to get the 3 count. Yeah, definitely another match that I really enjoyed. So I don't know where this is gonna go. Maybe they're gonna do another rematch at Extreme Rules once again. I mean, which is kind of a thing with Payback and Extreme Rules, since normally like Payback would come on after Extreme Rules, but I was looking at the pay-per-view calendar and then I all of a sudden I realized that Payback's coming first after WrestleMania, and then Extreme Rules will come. It's just very sort of complicated, but normally Extreme Rules would come after WrestleMania and then Payback after that. But for some reason, WWE just kind of flip flopped it around for some reason, and then add the fact that those pay per views are held on the same month, so it kind of gives sort of a lack of time to really build to your next show. And I think that was kind of the one of the few downsides I have with with this year's Payback, is that it's just kind of used as sort of a plot device just to advertise Extreme Rules, which I thought was kind of weird the way they did it. But it wouldn't surprise me if they end up doing a grudge match. We'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, so Dean Ambrose, thankfully, in my opinion, that I think he definitely needed this win, especially after losing against Brock Lesnar. But I think his popularity, I mean, he's still pretty over, but lately he's just been kind of always getting the short end of the stick. I mean, hopefully there'll come a time where he gets back in the W title contention, but I might have mentioned this in my WrestleMania 32 review about how Dean Ambrose wasn't going to get even close to being close to where he used to be. So hopefully I'm wrong, but I think he's just kind of lost that sort of steam that he had, especially after breaking up from the Shield a couple years back. But yeah, so this was a really good match. Then we have is the Women's Championship match, Charlotte defending the belt against Natalya. So this is basically a grudge match from their series of matches that they had over the past several months. And a lot of those matches ended in pretty controversial disqualification, and Charlotte Flair just ended up retaining the belt in some way, shape, or form. So eventually, this leads to a match at Payback where Natalya has Bret Hart in her corner, with Charlotte having her father Rick. So basically, the match was going pretty good up until the ending, where obviously WWE had to redo the Montreal screw job once again, and Charlotte Flair, oh, not Charlotte, but Charles Robinson, who was the referee at the time, ended up signaling the bell. Charlotte Flair locked in the sharpshooter on Natalya and basically rung the bell despite Natalya not tapping out. It's just kind of very tiresome just seeing this Montreal screw job thing happen for the umpteenth time. It's so old now. I mean, the first time they did it, it was something out of, something that caught the audience off guard because it was something very rare to see. We didn't really know a whole lot about backstage stories, but nowadays, with the internet and stuff, it's like WWE just kind of, sort of manufactures it into like this kayfabe story. Then again, you also factor in Charles Robinson and, his past relationship with Ric Flair. So I'm not sure if anyone remembers about WCW when Charles Robinson used to be in cahoots with Ric Flair, and Flair would always call Charles Robinson Little Nate, and that basically he would come off as the biased referee and having to do what it took to make sure that Ric Flair retained the world title. So, so in some ways it makes sense, but it's like I'm sure they could have come up with other alternatives besides the most over talked about screw job in professional wrestling history, and having to, go back to that same realm over and over again. So, I mean, it's already beaten to the ground like a dead horse. But Yeah, like I said, the match was itself wasn't bad, but it's just the ending just kind of overshadowed a lot of the good stuff that happened in this match. So we're likely going to see a rematch once again at Extreme Rules. And then we get to a McMahon family segment where Shane McMahon is undergoing evaluation by his father Vince and his sister Stephanie. Just whether or not Shane is doing a good job running Monday Night Raw and stuff. So basically, WrestleMania 32, Shane and Undertaker had the match. Shane wins, he was going to get control over Raw. Or if Undertaker wins, then he would still continue to wrestle at WrestleMania. But Undertaker ended up going over. But even despite that, Vince allows Shane to run Monday Night Raw anyway. So the whole build-up between Shane and Undertaker just didn't even make any sense based on that stipulation. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier in the video about how it seemed like they're acting like WrestleMania 32 didn't really existed. Vince decides to keep Shane around, but under one condition that if his daughter Stephanie were to also monitor Shane McMahon and to also, to basically try and be in cahoots and seeing that they could co-run Monday Night Raw. So Vince doesn't fire Shane, so Shane's still sticking around. But having Stephanie McMahon just to be kind of also in running Monday Night Raw with Shane as well. So, yeah, the McMahon family segment was just kind of what you expect for a McMahon segment, just a segment that just goes on for like 30, 45 minutes, and everyone was like chanting CM Punk at Vince McMahon since they were in Chicago. And it's just kind of, the CM Punk chants just need to be done and over with. CM Punk's move on with his life. I don't really, it's just as annoying as the what chants that Stone Cold used to do. I mean, two of the most annoying chants. I guess you could say the yes chant with Daniel Bryan is could be ranked under there, but not. I don't think it annoys me as much as the what chants or the CM Punk chants, especially since there's no signs of him coming back to WWE anytime soon. So, just very annoying. I mean, they could have just had a match on there just to kill some time, instead of, putting certain matches on the pre-show or, they should have just had one match on the pre-show. I mean, there isn't really any point to have anything more than one, but that's just my opinion though. But yeah, nevertheless, we segue over to the World Heavyweight title match between the champion Roman Reigns taking on AJ Styles. So yeah, the match was going really good. AJ Styles won that Fatal Four Way Number One Contenders match, and they also had the debut of the Bullet Club, which was very interesting. So they've been kind of building up this idea of whether AJ Styles and some of his friends from Japan, as the announcers would dub them as, um, but yeah, there seems to be some sort of affiliation, and AJ Styles just kind of just defending his honor that that his friends are all of a sudden interfering in matches and attacking certain wrestlers and attacking Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns just looking at AJ Styles and just taking all the blame on him. So they've been kind of building that up as far as the feud's concerned. Yeah, so the match happened. I mean, it was going pretty good. There was some pretty cool spots with AJ Styles doing his phenomenal flying forearm and really trying to emphasize that as a big signature move. Especially much like what Roman Reigns is to his Superman punch. So AJ Styles, they did a pretty cool spot where AJ Styles did the flying forearm on the Roman Reigns that sent them crashing through the announce table. It was kind of like just going just bouncing off the ropes and doing like a big dive over the ropes and on the ringside. So that's basically what AJ Styles did. And then the match initially ended in a count out with AJ Styles winning, but since a title belt can't change hands unless it's a pinfall submission, therefore the title doesn't change hands, meaning that Roman Reigns was still the world champion. So then Shane McMahon comes out there and addresses the whole situation. So now the match gets restarted, that there's no countouts. So the match resumes, and eventually Roman Reigns gets low blowed. So the match ends via DQ, and then Stephanie McMahon would come out and announce that not only there would be no countouts, but to also factor in that there's no disqualification. And then the match resumes a second time, and AJ Styles tries to do what he can to wear out Roman Reigns, and there were occasions where it looked like AJ Styles had the match won, but Roman Reigns manages to get his foot on the rope. AJ Styles does a phenomenal flying forearm once again, and Roman Reigns dodges, hits AJ Styles with the spear to get the pinfall, with Roman Reigns retaining. I mean, even despite the false finishes, the match was going pretty good for the most part. So they also had the Usos and the rest of the Bullet Club to come out there and try to even the odds. They're gonna do the rematch at Extreme Rules according to the post-match ending where Vince McMahon was interacting with Shane and Stephanie uh, about a potential rematch going on in Extreme Rules. That's pretty much the main event, and that was pretty much WWE Payback in a nutshell. So overall, definitely enjoyable show over WrestleMania 32, which I thought was pretty lackluster. So let me know what you thought about this pay-per-view down in the comment section below. And till next time, this is the Gold Standard Caesar 924 signing out.